This is Power 102 Digital Friday. The Fathers Association, they're on today for Hard Talk. I'm seeing on my system here. Shervon, I just saw Mr. Grant. Mr. Grant is back on with us. But special good afternoon to these distinguished gentlemen of the Fathers Association. Hard Talk starts now. Good afternoon, Shervon. Good afternoon, Mr. Grant.
Good
Afternoon, David.
evening.
Afternoon, David. Afternoon, Wendell. Good
Good
afternoon.
evening, Shervon. Good evening, David. Trinidad
Yes,
and Tobago.
your
Af-
audio is sort of cracking up, Wendell.
My audio.
Yes.
Good
Is it any
afternoon.
better now?
Yes, we can deal with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago. We would like to thank you and the region and those joining internationally. Thank you for joining the program this evening. And David, as always, we thank the Power 102 team for again creating this very important space for men in Trinidad and Tobago to be heard. Wendell, how you doing this Friday evening?
I'm good by grace and brother. How you guys doing?
Good man. So, Wendell, a lot has happened in the last 24 hours, if I could put it that way. 24 to 48 hours, right? Rondell will be on during the course of the program here to give us some feedback on his experiences at a meeting he was invited to yesterday, or a forum he was invited to yesterday, where the minister in the office of the Prime Minister, Minister Ayana Webster Roy, announced that a men's bureau is coming to Trinidad and Tobago. Right? That was also published in today's Newsday. And the minister didn't give too much details about what specifically this men's bureau would entail in the article, at least that is published, right? But we know that a couple men were engaged yesterday, I guess, to begin the discussion about what this will look like, what's the purpose of it, and so on. As I said, I will let Rondell give Wendell direct feedback, but I want to touch on the article a bit, and then I also want us to discuss with the listenership. Those online, feel free to call in, and we want to hear your thoughts on what should a men's bureau in Trinidad and Tobago look like. Right? We as the Fathers Association have been clamoring for more support for the men and boys in Trinidad and Tobago in various areas, and we'll get into all of them as we have this conversation. But we want to hear from you. What does that look like to you? A men's bureau. What does that look like to you? Just a reminder as you all come in, the numbers to call are 222-8255, 222-8255. The toll-free number, but we're still getting a lot of feedback on your end. 866-525-1099. And if you want to WhatsApp, you can WhatsApp us on 318-1021. And if you're online on social media, you just message and the comments will come through on our end. All right. So, those of you joining on, feel free to engage. What does a men's bureau look like for you in Trinidad and Tobago? Right? Make sure and put your views out there, because one of the things the minister said in this article, Wendell and David, the minister said she wants contributions. It's important that she get that men contribute ideas, all right, and in the support of building this bureau. So let me just read the first two lines or so of this article. All right, it says Ayana Webster Roy, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for gender and child affairs, has announced her ministry's plans to establish a men's bureau. Although she did not go into details about the plan, She said it will provide programs for men and focus on gender equality and the well-being of all men. The work we do here today, she's quoted as saying, is not just about addressing the issues you face daily. It is about creating a better, more equitable society for everyone, she said. The establishment of a men's bureau, quote, continued, is crucial. Together, we can build a future where every individual, regardless of gender, has the opportunity to thrive in the workplace, at home, and in communities. Right? She went on to say that she's stressing that men are key to resilient families. Men are the foundational bedrock, the cornerstone upon which the society and family thrive. I don't want today to just be a talk shop. I want you to come up with creative, innovative solutions and challenge us as leaders to provide you with what you deserve. The forum is designed to empower men, encourage meaningful dialogue, and help shape the Bureau. What are your thoughts on that, Wendell? Your mic muted.
First of all, I want to say that I welcome any initiative by the Honorable Minister with regards to both men and women. But in this particular case, I welcome the initiative that she is speaking about regarding the Men's Bureau. However, when I read that article in the Newsday today, it immediately raised an alarm. And I'll tell you why, Brother Shervon. It reminded me of when the European Union engaged the Single Fathers Association to support us with regards to a project concerning equality, gender equality, and the local feminist movement, which I now call it feminazi, was so ticked off by the European Union initiative to assist the Single Fathers Association in doing research to determine if they have gender equality or not. That they went to great lengths to attempt to have the European Union withdraw their support. And certain statements were made by the feminist movement. So I became concerned when I read that article in the Newsday today, wondering if they would go after the Honorable Minister in the same way that they came after the Single Fathers Association when the European Union engaged us in that project. Because based on some of the recent statements that would have been made by one of the head feminists in this country, where she alluded that men were women's greatest enemy, it makes me wonder if the Honorable Minister in her attempt to do something to engage men and men's concerns or issue in this country, if she would come under fire by the feminist movement in the same manner.
I see what you're saying. I hear what you're saying there, Wendell. Good evening, Coyote. Good evening, all listeners. I hear what you're saying there. And I am saying, Wendell, I know without a shadow of a doubt, anyone who attacks these initiatives, who attacks anyone who is supporting us in these initiatives, we will fiercely defend them, right? Just as we did for Sarah Jane Wendell, who has spoken publicly in defense of her and the opinions that she had shared, because we know there are those who want to tear her down, and we will not tolerate that. We will expose them for who they are. Because I really believe the majority of Trinidad people do not subscribe to those views. Despite the way the media at times would push those views, To make it seem like that is a majority view, I honestly don't believe so from my interaction with persons on the ground. We interact, Wendell, you would know, both mothers call us, right, as well as fathers, right? Males and females will call us, grandmothers will call us, and um, they are of like mind with us in terms of the building of building families, and you need to build strong men to build strong families. And so I was very I want to highlight there's a statement the minister made while I was reading there. Right. She said, I want to stress, quote, that men are key to resilient families. Men are the foundational bedrock, the cornerstone upon which society and family thrive. And I must say, Madam Minister, I am very pleased to hear that statement coming from yourself. Very, very pleased to hear so. Because there are those who want to do away with that view. There are those who want to make that view obsolete, as you know, Wendell, right? And as a result of that, we see the chaos and the anarchy that we have in our society today, in schools, in communities. We see it, the blood's running all over our land because there are those who have attempted to make the role of men obsolete and remove them from families. So I want to, again, commend the minister in putting forward this initiative. There's work to be done, right? And we, the Fathers Association, stand ready to be a part of building this initiative, right? We stand ready to be a part of building this initiative. And once done the right way, we are confident that we would see an impact, a positive impact on our land. Again, for those of you just joining us, we are discussing an article in today's Newsday where the Honorable Minister, Ayanna Webster Roy, who is Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for gender and child affairs, announced that a men's bureau is coming to Trinidad. And one of the points that she made in that announcement, she didn't go into detail about what it would look like, but there was a forum on yesterday where some stakeholders were invited to give some input as a first discussion. And we are asking everyone, all of our listeners today, to call in, message, and tell us, what are your thoughts? What do you think a men's bureau in Trinidad should entail? Right? What do you think a men's bureau in Trinidad should entail? So what are your thoughts on that, Wendell? What do you think a men's bureau should entail? You're muted, Wendell.
I would like to also add my bit in commending the minister for the initiative as well. I mean, it's a long time. It has been a long time in the making for such or any such initiative to come to fruition. And I also would like to say, add my voice in saying that the Fathers Association stands behind anyone who is not only again, not only initiatives concerning men, but as well as women, because as you would have said, Shervon, it's not just fathers that we treat with on a daily basis. We treat with mothers, grandmothers, aunts, sisters, because a lot of times they are the ones who are calling on behalf of their male counterparts or relatives because they are concerned. And yes, indeed, the majority of people support fatherhood and support men in our country. There is a small voice crying out against men and trying to villainize all men or broad brush all men with the same negative stigmatization that has become so commonplace in our society. But indeed, the majority are not that way inclined. Yeah. So, with regards to what should a men's bureau look like, I think that the stakeholders going forward should all engage and find common ground and agreement and what that should look like. So at this point in time, I would not share my views publicly, but I would share my views on the platform where these things are being discussed in a closed setting.
Okay. I see Coyote has sent another message here. So Coyote says, he says, I went to see my sons in their school today and my kids' mom is making me look like I don't want to be around. That I don't want to be around them. It hurts. And I wish I could see Mr. Fields personally. Coyote, I hope you're still listening. Now we have, and this is something we've said before, right? But we'll continue to say. We wish as an association that we had the manpower and the resources to talk to every man in Trinidad and Tobago individually, but we don't, right? There are a handful of us, literally, right, who volunteer our times and our energies and otherwise resources to support men and fathers in this country, right? Good. I see you say you're all here. You're here. What we have done, Coyote, and this is for everyone listening, every man listening, we have created a support group on Telegram, and we've shared that link. It's on our page, and I'll share it in the chat again there for you, Coyote, in case you never came upon it. And we ask men to join that support group so that when we share information in there, everyone could learn from it, right? There are other men in there who are where you are or were where you are presently, and they've gone through those experiences, and they can lend some support as well in different ways, right? And you see, a lot of times we think, just tell me what I have to do to go to court is the only answer I need, but it's a lot more than that, right? Because what you're going through right now is mentally taxing, it's physically taxing, it's spiritually draining, right? And in addition to the answers about the court process, you need a support system to get you through this season. And this is the only way that we, the handful of us, could provide that to so many, right? We also have a meeting on Zoom, right, with the men who are in that support group every month, where we can speak more privately and intimately about the different things that we are facing as they're going through this season. And so I will share that link again. But let me read this message that was shared with us today or last night, in our group. And this group member wrote, "Good night, everyone. I want to thank everyone in this group for sharing their experiences and knowledge. I learned quite a lot, and it has helped me. Before, my daughter was hesitant to spend time with me, but now she has come to realize what her mother was doing, right? I was also able to get a temporary custody order." And he goes on to say that now his daughter is living with him and they are building a great relationship, right? He also went on to say that because of joining this group, he was able to be enlightened and given the knowledge to reach this far, right? So I encourage the gentlemen out there, everybody, when we have this program, as we come up this program, I see people need messaging. I need to talk to you. I need to talk to Mr. Fields. I need to speak to somebody. Gentlemen, join the support group because we send the links every time we get the message. Some people join. Some people say, no, I need to talk to somebody, right? This is one of the many testimonies that we get in the group, Wendell, as you would know, right? And as I said, this is a patience game. It's a patience process. Yeah, it's not overnight. Wendell and I have no magic bullet to hand you that will cure the ills that you're facing right now. All right. Yes, Gerard, I see a message and I'm going to share the link in the chat, and I'm also going to put it back put it to the top of our page again. All right. Let me get back to the topic at hand. Right, the men's bureau. So I just on the point that Coyote and that Coyote just raised, Wendell. One of the things or the seed that gave birth to the Fathers Association is the injustices that fathers face when in legislation when it comes to family matters, because it starts there and it trickles its way down into the court system, right? And that was the seed that gave birth to the Fathers Association that brought yourself and Rondell together to champion the cause of fathers facing these situations. Now the association has evolved to more than that, right? But on that point Coyote is making, one of the roles I believe that the Men's Bureau has is championing that cause officially, looking at the inequities in the system as we have done, engaging stakeholders and getting their experience, looking at the inequities that fathers are facing in legislation when it comes to family matters, right? And championing that cause, making recommendations to the parliament, right? Having official meetings with the judiciary as because that is a formal body of the government that Men's Bureau will be. And so I see that as one of the areas that this Men's Bureau could step up among many others that we'll discuss. I see we have a brother on the line with us. How are you going, AJ?
Hey, pleasant good afternoon, fellas. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon and welcome, brother.
Good.
Thanks.
Wendell, you want to touch on that? So you're on mute.
Yes. All of what you have mentioned here, Shervon, you would have known that we have already had multiple joint select committee meetings where we have already put forward those things that you were suggesting, some of those things that you were suggesting. So we would not need to reinvent the wheel with regards to those things, but we would simply need to share those things which are already on the books, which were already accepted as legitimate suggestions, and the promise was made that those things would be addressed, right? And we have yet to have a meeting with the Attorney General. Some of the suggestions that we put forth that was accepted by the Joint Select Committee, they're still sitting somewhere, I guess, gathering dust. So that those are the things that we don't have to try to find out what we would need to put forward. Those things have already been put forward. So I am hoping that the Honorable Minister and whatever form this Men's Bureau takes would be able to address those concerns. Now, if you look in the message there, you would see that Coyote would have stated that he was humiliated in court. And this is a complaint that we have coming from men continuously, and I myself can testify of that humiliation in a personal capacity. But this is something that is always happening, has always been happening when men are blatantly told, "Fix your mouth, sit down, I don't want to hear from you," and statements like those are made by a certain magistrate in a courtroom where there is supposed to be equality in law, right? And this is something that we need to address from a legislative position. If the law is for all and the law is supposed to represent the interests of all, how then is one party protected and one party humiliated in a courtroom?
Yeah. And Wendell, you're right. There are points that we've already put down Joint Select Committee meetings and many others. And also there's more research to support the positions that we've made. There are many points, more research along the lines of parental alienation and those issues that are severely impacting men. So definitely, there's a starting place that we can use to work towards addressing the issues that men face before the courts. Okay. AJ, we're discussing the announcement.
Yeah, up to speed on what you're all discussing.
All
Up
right,
to speed,
good.
yeah.
So we discussing amongst ourselves, and we're asking the listeners to let us know what they think a men's bureau should entail in Trinidad and Tobago. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the one of the things that I think a men's bureau really needs to start looking into is how qualified, in some cases, the mothers are actually in having your children in their home. Because you see, a lot of times when men face the court, you are automatically deemed unfit to have your child or keep your child based on the fact that you wasn't the mom. And a lot of times the investigation tends to be one-sided in the sense that you would have people come to visit your home would be scrutinized, but a lot of the times the female home might not be scrutinized and the condition for them might be worse. And you might try to explain that in court, but you didn't get a chance to express yourself the way you want. So I think it should be, with a men's bureau, I think some sort of legislation should be put in place that both parents are investigated to the same level to see where the well-being of the child is concerned and how a parent could go forward having active care and control of the child. It shouldn't just be a case where mommy says daddy's space is unfit, and because of that, daddy is not allowed to have access to the child within his presence or his home, or he has to have supervised visits. If you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I take your point. And while we do know, AJ, that the court has services in place to do these assessments, I'm getting from what you're saying as well that it needs to be transparent, right?
Yes, it does.
That if you're saying my space isn't suitable, then tell me why is my space not suitable, or what is more suitable about mommy's place than my place, or grandparent place than my place, etc. Right? We want transparency in what is being said, and I take your point on that. I have a comment from a listener here. The listener says their concern, firstly, is who would make up this men's bureau, and that is a very pertinent contribution to that person who sent me that comment. Who will make up this men's bureau? And because we know, AJ and Wendell, that there are people who pose in Trinidad and Tobago as supporting men's issues, and they are not.
True.
Right? There are people who pose as having men's programs, and I ain't saying that to big up we program and put on others, but we telling facts. Wendell, AJ, I sure you see them online and on news and media and so on. The things they say, they actually tear down men. Right? Anytime I hear a man use the word, and I hear men use the word toxic masculinity, I just turn off whatever device it is immediately. Right? Because that was a word designed to tear down men. We have never, despite the negative behavior of some women, not all, we have never heard the term, AJ, toxic femininity.
No.
We don't hear that term, right? And so, yes, there are men who are not behaving properly, to put it mildly, right? And they need to be called out and addressed. But a brand, right? And to put in a box and start to list all kind of behaviors and say all of this A to Z falls in a category of some made up word called toxic masculinity. And men
But you
are
see, even with the word toxic masculinity, they normally add on toxic masculinity, right? And then they would go as far as to say misogynistic. But you don't hear toxic femininity, or you don't hear misandrous being used, because misandrous is also the same thing as the version to men, but that is not something that is put out there.
correct.
We are just broad brushed based on the definition that we deem us fit. So we just fall under that category, all of us.
Or we broad brush
That's
based on
wrong.
the actions of our few AJ.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that, Wendell, that triggered that whole 2 weeks that we had this conversation, right? Where the lady said that men are the greatest enemy of women. And she used to justify that statement the men who commit acts of domestic violence, who
Mhm.
Wendell put out the stats, are not in the majority, right?
Mhm.
And we know that there are women who commit acts of domestic violence. So how come they're not broad brush like men, right? But I go back to the commenters or the contributors' comment. Who makes up our men's bureau? What are the
That's a good question.
specialities that are going to make up our men's bureau? That's a very interesting contribution. What do you think about that, Wendell, AJ?
Well, that's a very interesting um, question and comment indeed, because as we all know in this country, a lot of times when we see a board that is supposed to be representing the interests of men in any particular setting, we will see that the majority of people sitting on that board are women, right? I mean, we have when you look at the at UE, and you look at the 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 faculty of humanities, and the ones that are teaching on the subject of men and masculinities. Just do a brief survey and you will see just how many men, how many women as opposed to men are teaching men and masculinities in youth, for example. And coming back to that statement, about toxicity and the whole thing about toxic masculinity and misandry. The individual who would have made the statement about men being the greatest enemy of women is actually a prime example of that sort of behavior. But yet no one calls her out. She makes these statements, they touts and you know what is really mind blowing and disappointing is that this particular individual, she has statistics, she has data that says contrary to the claims that she is making, but they suppress the data and they put all these kinds of statements out there, and the media takes these statements and run with it. Now, AJ mentioned something just now about the inequity with regards to what makes one parent's environment better. Am I correct? Is that what you were saying, AJ?
Mhm.
What makes one parent's environment better than the other? Than that one parent is given priority or favor above the other. Because I've had a lot of men call and complain about the environment where the child is living, they not having no running water, no electricity. The home is a run down, broken down, holes in the flooring, mud in the yard outside kind of environment, and as opposed to the father's environment that is a proper living space. And yet the authority, whether it be the children's authority or the court system, does not look into the conscience of the father. In fact, the magistrate a lot of time in the court silences the father and refuses to even allow him to give that information or that evidence or raise that concern before the court. And that's what I am saying. There needs to be, this needs to be addressed from a legislative perspective, because, excuse me, those who are the practitioners of the law, those who are applying the law, they are doing so in a prejudiced and biased manner. And it is blatant, it has been blatant for a long time. And that is why we have been trying to get the legislators, the ear of the legislators, so that these matters can be addressed from that perspective, because the court is an entity by itself. Nobody can dictate to the court what to do, but only the law can dictate to the court what to do.
I
So
want to, from what you all are saying, and 2 points are taken from it. One, to me, one of the roles of the Men's Bureau is to monitor and report on if men are receiving equitable treatment in this country.
correct.
In all spheres. And you know, I must say I had to do some reading on it, because we have a body in this country called the Equal Opportunity Commission, right? And I must say I'm not too accurate with their functioning and their purpose, right? But there are clear issues of inequitable opportunities for men in Trinidad and Tobago from all levels, from an educational perspective, right? All the way up. We have seen of recent times when, well, not just private organizations, but even a ministry, being the Ministry of Digital Transformation, putting out an IT program and
Only women.
women only, right? And which is not supported by studies, as we would have shown as well when that came out, which is not supported by the results coming out of the academic circles, AJ, and yet still, and to me, those things need to be condemned, and condemned in the strongest way.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree with that.
So to me, that is one of the roles you all pointed out in terms of the Men's Bureau is monitoring and reporting on the level of equity men are receiving in this country in different services, right? The second thing, back to the contribution about what the Bureau should be made up of. What we're saying is there should only be men on the Men's Bureau, right?
Well, no. I could agree with that, but then I could also disagree with that, because you see now, if it is a case that we are requesting, like you see, is a equity board where we already have a scenario where there's a biasness. We do not. It's very easy for women to change the narrative and say that, listen, because it's a board that is made up of only men, there is going to be a bias there. We could put everybody on the board and nobody could be biased. They're gonna still say that the board is biased because the board is made up of only men alone. Somewhere in that board has to have a woman involved. Somewhere. And I know you might say, but we don't need that. But I'm telling you, if the minute we put together a board like that, if they put together a board like that, and that board becomes functional and starts to yield results in a drastic way, the pushback from the feminine side will be overwhelming. And the narrative that is going to be put out into the public domain is that the board is biased because the board is only created with men in mind. You remember, we are trying to show that because of boards being more built with women alone, because if you have to look at how a board is made up, let's be honest. Nowadays, when you look at a board is made up of women and men who try to be women, if you understand where I'm coming from.
Correct.
So The purpose of the men who are trying to be women on the board is just for them to say, but look, we have men here too.
Window dressing.
But, right? That is what it is. But his agenda is he wants to be like them. So in order to fall in line, he will go along with whatever narrative they put out.
Correct.
Right? What we have to show is a level of maturity to show that, listen, we are about bettering men's health. We are about getting better opportunities for men, getting men back on track. But we are not going to be biased, and we are going to be completely transparent. And not being biased means we are going to also allow women to be part of this board.
But AJ, I take your point, But my thing is, the purpose of this organization or institution within the industry is to support services that men require, among other things, right? What do you see other than to say it's only men there? Because when they come together to discuss women issues, it's only women there. And I don't have an issue with it. I can contribute to that discussion, right? What is the role of a woman on the men's bureau board to be based on the purpose of that?
Well, you see, the reason why I would say we need a woman on that board is because of a simple scenario that I dealt with today. I can't disclose person name, but there's a teacher who I talked with, and this teacher, all her life, she has been more focused on boys in school. She recently went from primary to secondary school. And in her education system, she's in a school that is a problematic school. And she's been working with boys more to the point where some of the girls feel she's a little more biased to the boys. But it's not that. She identified that boys or men naturally have a struggle coming. They are losing their way, right? Because of that, she is there to enforce the situation of, listen, a man needs to be a man or a boy needs to be a boy, but also to also show the man that, listen, within your process of being a man, you do not have to be a rugged, chiseled version of yourself, because that is how a lot of men have been made to be all our life. We're supposed to be rugged, we're supposed to be chiseled, we're supposed to be this, not understanding that with the change in society, men could also change to be a bit of both. So by having a woman on the board, the woman now would be able now to bring an argument. Like if she see a woman coming from a specific angle with a narrative, we need a woman on the board who could counter that woman's argument based on what she knows from inside men's bureau, right? And put it to tell a woman that, listen, what you are basically creating as a narrative based on the information I have gathered here as a woman and based on my understanding as a woman, this narrative cannot fly when men is concerned. And the reason why I'm telling you it will be better for a woman to be in that space doing that is because if you put a man in that space to tell a woman that, they're going to view it as stonewalling, and they're going to view it as we being biased. And the progress we're trying to build, we didn't get that. We need a woman, because you remember, we're trying to teach women to understand that there are certain needs and requirements that men have. If it is a case that we don't give a woman chance to come into that space to see what is going on with men, right? It has nobody to carry the message back, because they already made up their mind that they don't want to hear a bunch of men speak. We have already been stonewalled with that. So we need to have a woman in the midst who can say, listen, I've been to these men home, I've been to the court system, I've seen what is going on with the boys in school, I've seen what's going on in boys' home. So when a woman says, well, listen, all the men talking about nonsense, she could now stand up along with us men and say, listen, there is some form of truth to what these men are saying, because I am in there with them and I'm seeing what they're doing. But if it is a case that a bunch of men come to carry that narrative alone by themselves, we will be ignored. I'm not asking you, I'm telling you.
Let me jump in here.
Let me let Wendell jump in there. Just
I
one second.
don't think.
Just 1 second. Let me just remind one. I see maybe commented here. She said, I agree. It's good to have a woman's perspective because both men and women have to live together and have different views. For those of you just joining, we are discussing the announcement made by the Honorable Minister Ayanna Webster Roy, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for gender and child affairs, and the announcement in today's Newsday that a men's bureau is coming to Trinidad and Tobago, right? And we are discussing what does that men's bureau entail. So please feel free to comment, call in, engage the panel as we have that discussion, right? The numbers to call are 222-8255, 222-8255. Toll-free number if you're calling from the US or Canada is 866-525-1099. And WhatsApp number is 868-318-1021. Go ahead, Wendell.
Yes. As everyone would know, I don't think that the Single Fathers Association, now the Fathers Association, has ever discriminated or not wanted women to be a part of ours or any organization that we are a part of. So if we came across like that, AJ, I don't think that is the I don't think that is what we intended to say. The reality of it is
Not cutting your Mr. Graham, but hear what is going on. I know for myself that the Fathers Association is not like that because before the Fathers Association was founded, Mr. Fields was somebody who I went with my scenario, and that is how I have custody with my sons and stuff now, right? But I am telling you now, based on me having my platform, based on some of the females that are on my platform, the minute they hear anything concerning the Fathers Association, the minute they hear anything concerning Mr. Fields, the first thing they say, they don't like that man and they don't have time to listen to anything we have to say. And I'm telling you that from women on my platform, both platforms, one has 35,000 followers, the other one has 14,000 followers. And there's a large majority of women on that platform who do not agree with anything that the Fathers Association stands for.
And that is not abnormal, that is quite natural. Because we live in a society that is anti-man. We live in a society where men have been villainized for a very long time. We live in a society where women are victims and men are villains, right? So anything the Single Fathers Association or the Father, I keep saying Single Fathers Association, the Fathers Association of Trinidad and Tobago is the #1 and only advocacy group in Trinidad and Tobago that truly represents the interests of men, right? We are not in this because we get government grants. We are not in this because we have access to any sort of free money as some of the other organizations do. We are in this because we want to represent the best interests of men. We are in this because we have both sons and daughters who would be in a position that we were in and we are in now if we do not do something and ensure that they have a better future. And the reality of the matter is that women, because of the culture of the mind in our society, a lot of women will naturally hate any man who stands up for other men in the society. And that is the reality. So I am not surprised. I myself have encountered a number of men, a number of women, even men who say, I don't want to have anything to do with your organization as long as Rondell feels as a part of it. Right?
Yeah.
We have men who have left our organization because they don't like the manner in which Mr. Fields does things. And do you think that they like Mr. Grant? They probably hate Mr. Grant, but more than they hate Mr. Field. Because Mr. Grant don't put water in his mouth to say anything. Mr. Field still softens up what he has to say. I don't. The only difference is Mr. Field is more the face in the media that everyone sees, and Mr. Grant is not. Right? But the reality of it is, anytime a group of men, whether it's 1 man or 10 men, get together to represent the interests of men, we are going to be hated and despised. And that
you're
is
gonna get
nothing.
schooled.
And
Right?
let me add to that, AJ. Wendell, sorry if you didn't finish. Go ahead.
Right. So when it comes to the makeup of any men's bureau, I have been one of the number one advocate for women to be part of any association that represents the interests of men. I have come under fire in our Facebook groups for having women interacting with men in the group. I have defended women's right to speak in the groups, right? There are men who have gotten so pissed off and left the group because I defended women. At the end of the day, I share the view that both men and women created the problems and the issues which we now face in our society, and therefore both men and women will be required to find solutions to those problems and issues. And I stand by that, right? So if any woman wants to go on hating Mr. Fields and they want to go on hating and despising Mr. Grant, I welcome them to do that. There is a God in heaven that will deal with that. I'll tell you something, and I'll say it openly here. Every attitude, every characteristic, every word that you speak, every action that you commit has a destination. So those women who hate and despise a man because he's speaking on behalf of men, they have a destination. They have a reward that they will arrive to and receive for that behavior. Some of them have sons. Some of them will have grandsons. And you see the problems that we face now, it will come home to them. I guarantee them that.
Let me Wendell. Let me just read some of the comments. So Richard, I see a comment. But Richard, if you're saying that, and I'm not going to read it out, if you're saying that, give some more information to what it is you're saying. Right? I can't see where you're going. If what you're commenting there, if that is what you believe, give some more information and we could engage in that conversation. Anthony says a woman's perspective would bring about a balance and pick the interests of our wider society. Maybe says I applaud the current speaker. Assuming she's speaking to you, Wendell. Right? He is so right, both men and women will fix that. I'm not sure what you're saying at the end there, maybe. AJ got cut off. I was going to say, Wendell, to AJ's comment. Let me tell you something. People criticizing me, my opinions, my personal opinions, or the association of which I am a part, I could live with that. Wendell, I am not here. I can't. I am not God. Right? In fact, Christ come, he died, Wendell, and people still don't want to follow him. Right? So I do expect people to follow. I do expect everybody to follow me. Right? There are things we have seen. We saw, Wendell, where that woman made the post that the Fathers Association is telling men don't pay maintenance. You remember that?
Yes.
All we did is we took a clip from a program that you and I had just the week or two before, and we put it in response to her post. And what did she do? She deleted the post and hide away her profile. Why? Because she knows she was causing bacchanal. That's all she was out to do.
Gentlemen, I have a call on the line.
David, go ahead. I'll finish this point there.
Good afternoon, caller.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hey, for real. Yes, for real.
Hi, Cyril. How are you going?
I'm fine. Too often, I have women tend to say men are dogs. And you know, that really hurts me because there are quite a number of good men. I had 3 brothers, and we were raised to respect our brothers. So I don't understand why some women just love to say things about men. You know, some years ago, I was a social worker in Toko, and there was this man. He used to tell me, he said, Miss, when I see my wife on one side, I go in on the next side, you know, and people think I'm afraid. Ha, I am not afraid of her, you know. I just trying to keep myself out of trouble because I know the law is for women. That man said, and that was in the late 90s. So what I want to find out from you gentlemen, I don't know if you all do workshops, ongoing workshops for men and boys. Do you all?
We have done so, Cyril. We haven't done a public workshop in a while, but we have done so. And when we are invited to speak at institutions, schools, and so forth, we always give that time to do so.
Well, it really be nice when you all have a big workshop for just men and boys, but men and women to get the women's point of view.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that contribution, Cyril. And thanks
So
for
let me just say this.
The first person there,
Let me say this.
defending men. Thank you.
Okay.
Let me say this in response to what our sister just said there. You know, women like to say that I often say that women like to say that men are dogs, but most of them who are saying that men are dogs, they have one or quite a few, or they have had one or many.
Wendell. Yeah. Wendell.
The reality.
Yes, it is the reality.
It is the reality, and even you know there are studies and videos that I see with psychologists, female psychologists speaking and talking about their experiences with their clients and so on, and they will tell you that a woman, even though she is married or she's in a long-term relationship, most of them they have men lined up. They have men who will change a bulb, men who will fix the car for them, men who will do this for them, men who will do that for them, and they have one to fall back on in case the relationship or the marriage that they are in fails, right? So this whole ideology about men are dogs, yeah, men might be dogs, but they love dogs.
No, that is a whole conversation about it, but that is a valid point. But AJ, I dropped off when we were making that point. I don't know if you were here, not when you got bumped off. Did you?
Yeah, I think you was addressing the comment that the guy made. I didn't get to hear what the comment was because you didn't read it.
Your feedback as well, where you said there are many people who don't like what Rondell feels stands
Yeah,
for.
because you see,
right? So I get it, but what I was saying, AJ.
No, but here was the funny thing about it, right? As much as there are women who don't like the association, there's a lot of women that are pro fathers association, right? So that is why I know for sure that there are women who can be on this board that is non-biased. I know that for a fact.
What I don't like in times gone by. I take your point, and you make a very valid point, yeah? And I see it, and I think yes, we can. But I don't want a men's bureau board that turns out to be majority women and men who aspire to be women.
I agree. That was my concern.
I agree with that.
I agree with you. That was the only concern that I had.
It has to have more men on the board, and not only that too, it has to have it. And this is something that is important to me if the board has to be in. All the men must come from different walks of society, and all the women must come from different walks of society.
Let me just say this, AJ.
It cannot be that the board is only made up of professionals. Because a professional could never tell me about the man on the ground.
Correct.
Yeah.
A professional could never tell me what is in the hearts and the mind of a ghetto youth.
Yeah. Correct.
Because they wouldn't know where that come from. That you could come with theory, but theory could never be practical.
Yeah, yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
So,
Right,
so,
so let
so
me jump in.
that is what I believe. The board has to be made up of men and women from all walks of life, right? The ethnicity thing is not really important, but it needs to be made up from all walks of life. We must have people down to the mediocre level on as part of that board.
Well, I
Because
think that
I can come,
ethnicity is required as well, because
well, mhm,
men of different ethnic background also have different experiences about what it
true,
means to be a man, right?
true.
So to me, that also needs to be a consideration in
But to me personally, I don't think ethnicity matters when it comes to man. I just think man does just get a bad rep automatically. It does. That, to me, the old every time I've ever heard a family court story,
Mhm.
ethnicity do apply to man in family court. We would just get shaft. Your
Well,
name man, you get shaft.
I hear your point, but remember the men's bureau is more than family court issues, eh?
Well, true.
About with their a variety of things that they'll be addressing, more than
Mm,
just the things that happen in the court system. But
mm,
then I want to take the conversation forward a little bit. I
mm,
think we acknowledge that that thought is required in the construction of this board. Deep thought is required in the construction of this board. It must be majority men, and
mm.
my majority, a large majority. If it's 10 people on the board, it can't be 6-4. A tiny age, no, right?
True,
You
true.
can't have boards like and committees like I've gone in the past where they say it's for men, and it's not really for men, it's a pappy show. It's made
True.
to design and program men to be what we want them to be, more
To
feminine,
conform. It's to
right?
conform.
Masculine,
Conform to their narrative.
yeah, it can't be that, right? But there must be some deep thought into what the construct of it, and it must be a acuity of all different walks of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our entire society must be represented in there. But I want to carry
Mm-hmm.
the conversation forward because look, all we discuss is what the board should constitute, and we see how much conversation that entails. What should be the purpose of this board, right? We have issues in education, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where males have the performance of males has been dropping steadily over
Mm-hmm.
the last couple of years. When we look at academic performance, what role do you all see? And again, those online callers and so on, feel free to drop your comments. Feel free to call in. What role, Wendell and AJ, do you see this men's bureau playing where the education sector is concerned?
Well, in terms of, like I said, based on the teacher and the background of me having dated a teacher at a point in time, there is a clear system breakdown where men is concerned in the education sector. And it's not only, it's coming from situations where they are coming from home. We have a lot of men coming from broken homes. Um, we have a lot of fathers that are not missing in action. A lot of young men being yeah, unable to express themselves the way they want to express themselves. So they figure the only way they need to express themselves is to be in a form of anger. So, and not only that too, but like I said, the teacher noticed, and this is something she observed, that when it usually comes to boys, because the narrative, and this is why I said this is something that is being done from like you say, from school. The narrative is the minute a boy is a bit difficult, or the minute a boy is a bit slower to learn or grasp something, they give up on them immediately. They see them as a lost cause. So the focus now remains on the females because the females, they see the females excelling, they see the females doing a bit more. So they tend to shift their focus away from the boys and focus more on the girls. And because of that, we have a lot of boys suffering in the education system.
So you're saying, AJ, we want this bureau to examine why boys are falling behind in the education
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the roles you see.
And yes, and to me, one of the biggest ways to find out that, interview the teachers and them, because and let's pray that the teachers and them are transparent, because you would now need to find out from teachers, why do you see it as the boys being our low scores? Because in most cases we have scenarios where Peter could very well be paying for Paul. If I have three in the class that is disruptive, that send my blood pressure up, I could feel a need not to be dismissive to majority of the class. And if it's a class that contains more boys than girls, all the boys now will now be suffering because of a few.
Yeah. And you know, we have a situation in Trinidad. I don't know the stats, right? But I hear from attending my son's school meetings, I hear principals lament about the lack of male teachers, right? And the disparity in the number of female teachers to male teachers, and the cry for more male teachers, obviously because you see happening in our school system today, right? So strong, there's a lack of strong male role models on school compounds, right? And you have what we have, that we have boys' schools in Trinidad and Tobago, as we know, right? Only boys' schools. But even in the mixed schools, you see what is happening there in terms of the delinquent behavior. And
Yeah, but even in boys' schools alone, you have a lot of of females working in boys' schools alone.
Yes, yeah. So to me, that deep diving into what is happening there where education is concerned, because it's more than the curriculum, and it's more than just the what is being taught in the classroom, right? The book, more than what is being taught under the book. But there seems to be some deep-rooted problems in the educational sector that is creating a generation of delinquency, of juvenile delinquency, right? And the floodgates are open where that is concerned. Yeah, what is happening to all those boys who we see coming through the system and are failing from since primary school? With intervention, we see them fail from first year all the way up to SA. And if by some chance they get into a secondary school, they fail all the way from Form 1 straight to Form 5, and graduate them out of school knowing full well they are not employable, right? So then what are they going to do next? And so what is happening along those stages definitely is something that we need to look at. Wendell, what are your views? What is it you see the role of the men's bureau in the education sector?
I I think differently, right? And I think that I think in a systematic manner to start with, the minister did not indicate what are her intention or what is the intent of the so-called men's bureau that she said that she is going to be forming, right? So before any sort of discussion can take place on what the men's bureau is going to do or what the men's bureau is going to be addressing, we have to find out first what is the intent. What does the minister think that the men's bureau means to her?
Well,
right? Because if we go back to the meaning of men's bureau, we will see a men's bureau don't have much say in anything, you know. Right? So it's important for me to know what is the minister's intention for having a men's bureau. What does she want to, or her ministry want to get out of the men's bureau? And before you go on, let me make this the next point. The next point relative to what the both of you were just discussing there with regards to boys falling back and so on. I do not hold the school system responsible for what you all are highlighting or discussing there. That starts at home. with the family of origin, right? Because at the end of the day, the first line of defense is the parents. The parents have to begin to train their children at school. The parents, according to what the Prime Minister would have alluded to, we can't send little monsters to school and expect the teachers to teach them, right? So let's be real when it comes to that, right? Boys are not just falling through the crack because the teachers are failing to teach or the education system is failing to do its job. Boys are falling through the crack because the parents are failing to send teachable young boys to the school in order for them to be taught.
I take that point, Wendell, but the point I was making is that when children come to school and are struggling in school in different ways, behaviorally, academically, and so on, to me, that is a flag for the state to know that something is wrong and to investigate. And the root of the problem may be the home, as you say. A lot of times it could be the home. But to me, just if we notice there's a problem, we have the Children's Authority, we have Child Protection, we have all kind of authority, right? That are to look after the well-being of children. If it is the system that children are in from the age of 3 years old, kindergarten, all the way up to 16, 17 years old, secondary school, secondary school, there are flags popping off. I am saying that should be an intervention point to see what needs to be done to get to address the root cause of the problem and to get this child on a positive path. Because if we say, well, that is not, we see it, but it's the parent, and we just say it's the parent's responsibility. Nobody is taking the information that we getting from the school to address it. I am saying that what we're doing is we're just having a cycle of new criminals coming out.
I agree with what you're saying, Shervon. But let me tell you something. There are parents when the school or the teacher attempts to address the issues that the school or the teachers are picking up on or encountering with those children at the school. When they call in the parents' attitude towards the whole situation is not conducive to any type of change in that situation because the parents are hostile, they are ignorant, right?
But if that is the case, then what do we do? Do we just say, well, you ain't want to fix it, so it's you? Because at the end of the day, this child,
we have to go deeper.
That is what I'm saying. So that was
we have to go deeper. And let me tell you something. We have to go deeper, and that is where bodies like the Children's Authority comes in. But let me tell you something. The Children's Authority was developed on a foreign model that was looking for a foreign country that they take and they bring it here, and they're trying to make it work here. And I can tell you that it is failure, right? But that is something that we will have to discuss in depth why it is failing and how it is failing. But these are the types of bodies that has to intervene when scenarios like what I just spoke about there comes up. We have to have children's homes that could take these delinquents where the parents are failing or where the parents are ignorant and cannot step in and correct the situation and put them. You and I both know what within recent times the reputation of these children homes and what has been happening in these children's homes. So all these are systems that needs to be fixed, right? So here we are. We're going to create, and I'm being real, brothers. I'm being real. Here we are. We're going to create another bureau to do what? We are going to create another bureau to identify problems, to offer solutions, and who is going to be managing it? Who is going to be running it? The same government that has been running everything else, or the same ministries or institutions. This is not a political statement, so nobody takes it as such. We are talking about institutions here. The same ministries, the same institutions that have been running everything and everything collapsing. They are the ones that are going to be running it. So it's just another quick fix that is being offered. Is it going to work? That's why
Well, I
I'm
just
saying I want to know what is the intent of the minister or the ministry when they speak
right.
about
Well, I just read the article there. While you all were discussing,
AJ, I
while
want
you
to
all
read
were discussing, I read the article.
right.
And
AJ, I want to read the portion I've highlighted, and you'll tell me if it's the
mm,
same thing. Right? What
mm,
the minister, and this is quotation. The minister says, I want you, she's challenging the men. I want you to come up with creative, innovative solutions and challenge us as leaders to provide you with what you deserve. She emphasized the forum is designed to empower men, encourage meaningful dialogue, and help shape the bureau. And this is quotations again, the most significant outcome we hope to achieve through this forum is the initiation of discussions around the Bureau, which will serve as a dedicated platform to support and address men's issues. We want it to be a space where men can support each other, highlight opportunities, and track the progress of men and boys. I just some of it. But what I got
yeah.
from the article, Wendell, is she's asking us, and I'm not saying us, just the association, but men, to determine what they want a men's bureau to represent. She's
Mm.
asking us to determine that. And so I am seeing this as an opportunity. I'm not heading in the clouds, Wendell, and I take your point, but I'm seeing this as an opportunity for us to shape or have the opportunity to shape or be one of the hands that shape and mold what this bureau serves.
via,
AJ?
Right. I
via,
think, and I
via
think,
meaningful discussion. Via meaningful discussion. That's the synopsis of it. Via meaningful discussion,
No,
I'm asking. That's what.
the meaningful discussion she was referring to, from my interpretation of the article, was the forums, the meeting that we're going to have to discuss what this bureau is to entail.
And after that,
Well, we have to start at one, Wendell. We have to start
yeah,
at
because
one.
you see, what she's basically saying is that the dialogue, she said, based on the article, she said that it's going to be a safe space for men only, right? And she wants men to come in, talk about the issues that they're having in different parts of society, and let's see how we can go forward as a unit to fix these things. That is what the article said. Mr. Tilok Singh was also in the article stated that things like men's maternity leave, he would like those things to be addressed. Men's mental health, men's ability for equal rights in the job space, and all these things. So that's what they're saying in the article, that they would like men to come. Now, what I'm saying here is this: the
the
Fathers
Single
Association.
Fathers Association via the Joint Select Committee meetings have been calling for that whole list of things. Whole entire list, whatever you call out there, all of that is in proposal put forward to the Joint Select Committee.
Right, so that is what I'm saying. Maybe this is the opportunity here, because when I read the article just now here, my take from this was the Fathers Association is in a unique position, or as far as I'm concerned, being the biggest form of advocacy in Trinidad and Tobago and in the Caribbean. I think that the Fathers Association is in a very unique position to be the men that champion this cause.
Let me interject here, fellas. I have a call on the line. Good afternoon, caller.
Yes,
Afternoon, Paula.
Hey, Cyril again.
again. A
Hi,
question
Cyril.
triggered my memory when someone asked what it is might be causing girls to um to over outperform the boys. So this question triggered my memory. When I was growing up, my mother always used to tell my sister and myself and my nieces, work hard in school so that when you all get big, no man won't have to make no style and make no style on you all. You'll have your education. So I just asked myself, how many mothers probably were saying that and probably still saying that to the girl children? Just that thought. Thank you.
Thanks for your feedback, Cyril. So we
You
are
have
running
a lot of men still saying that to girl children, but the women not saying that to the boy children.
So I see Rondell joining us. I just want to shout out those online who have been engaging us in conversation. Lenore, welcome. I know, Lenore, you're an avid listener, so we're glad to have you on the program today. Coyote, we've seen your comments. Keep engaging. We're discussing today, those who are just joining the program, we have been discussing the article in today's Newsday, where the minister in the office of the Prime Minister, Ayanna Webster Roy, who has responsibility for gender and child affairs, has announced her ministry's plan to establish a men's bureau. And in the article, it quotes the minister as asking for feedback, basically, and dialogue, contributions from men on what this bureau is to entail. Now, I informed you all at the top of the program that Rondell would have attended the first discussion on yesterday, and so he would give some feedback on that discussion. But what we've been taking feedback on during the course of the program, Rondell, so far, is what should this bureau entail, right? We also discussed what the bureau, who should make up the bureau. That's some of the hot conversation that has been going on. Welcome, bro.
Hey, first of all, thanks you guys for holding on the fort there. Granty, I see your opinion box with us today, Shervon. I got a little cap back, today's in my lad passing out. And it was such an amazing event to see those young men positively motivated. I am now convinced, brothers, if you see we want to see better behavior in schools, send them military men to go and run the school, brother. They reform the lives of many. And before I jump into anything much, it was good to see that a young man that we sent to Milat, we referred to Milat, actually Sergeant Small is the person who was connected to him. He was one of the two boys that we sent to Milat, was actually the top performer. His name is Cadet Chandri. Cadet Chandri's mother right now has stage 4 cancer, is in the Cora Hospital as we speak. And he, at that point in time, 2 years ago, and another young man who we were dealing with at the time were two of the most troublesome. Both went in. One decided to leave the week after, and Chandri decided to stay. And it was such a pleasing sight to see Chandri excel above every other cadet today, boy. It was an amazing thing. It was amazing to see how the military had reformed him. It was an amazing thing to see how he himself had now found self-worth. He had a hard life. His father had died. I think his father was killed. I could be wrong, when he was a baby. And then with his mother now getting sick, he was going through a very, very severe time. And I mean, it was amazing. I must take my hats off to Chandri. I must congratulate him publicly before saying anything else. So guys, I want to jump in because they want me to come and speak to the boys after. So I will just pop in and give a little synopsis on what would have happened yesterday in at the inauguration of what I don't even call it an inauguration. I guess it's a sampling or a testing of what they want to figure out or what they want to call a men's bureau. Now, there are men's bureaus throughout the Caribbean already. We know this. Grenada has a men's bureau functioning. Jamaica has what they call a men's desk. And these things were started by their gender ministers who had accepted and had admitted that, hey, for some reason, gender affairs only looks like it satisfies or treats with the issues of women. In our ministries, we are going to do something different. And they decided to then compartmentalize or bring out the departments of either a men's bureau and a men's desk. So I get from the sense that is what they wanted to do. I cannot say it was carried out in the best way from the experience we had. They focused on a lot of the discussion focused on more the office space. Sexual harassment was one of the biggest topics that they discussed, as into sexual harassment when a male may be the victim or when a male may be the perpetrator. That was 90% of what the discussion was about. That to me was a little disappointing, particularly when the most pressing issues with men are topics like murder, topics like suicide, topics like parental alienation, topics like paternity fraud, topics like false accusations of a sexual nature. these kind of things are the topics that we have ventilated over the years pertaining to men's issues. So when they were highlighting these things, it was a little disheartening, I would say, to see none of these issues touched on, to see no professionals who had the competence to speak on some of these things. It made it appear a bit, I don't want to knock them too hard because, I mean, after the dialogue, and I must commend the man that was a part of the crowd. I think there was one of the past NJAC members there as well. He made a lot of good representation as well. I think when the response from the crowd came around, they realized that men had a great idea of what their issues were, and they were very serious and intentional about having it addressed. So I think the first meeting I won't consider that a meeting as yet. I would think it is a sampling. Possibly it was a litmus test to determine, to see who would come, to hear what would be said, to see if we could be afraid to say it or to see, because at a part of it, it started to then turn wrong to a conversation about men looking at themselves and how women die and how women are killed and these kind of things. Until I had to pinpoint to them the number of men that were charged last year for femicide were 19 men out of the male populace. And a male population that in 2023, the CSO reported that we have 542,000 men between 15 to the age of about 75. So 19 out of 542,000 is 0.0035% of men that have committed femicide against women. And then the crowd started to realize, well, yes, 19 women died, but 19 not as horrible as we've been told that men are. Men possibly aren't killing women in this broad wash way as is being portrayed in society. If 19 out of 542,000 men are the ones committing this perpetration, it means we have 500 and something thousand men that aren't harming women. And those men, out of that 500 and something thousand men, are the men most likely or most times would have brought those 19 men to justice and to be charged. And when we say 19, we don't say 19 meaning all was domestic violence. This will include robbery. We see just like poor Granny who got killed the other day. This will include the husband and wife fighting for land. It could include a number of things. But there was 19 femicides last year and 18 femicides the year before. So when I brought that statistic to the fore, people started to realize that there seems to be because we don't do the research, and because we haven't created or dialogues based on research, we are now being filled with conversations that has actually created a false sense of what the male in the Trinidad society looks like. So two of the points that I think we made in the end of the entire thing, that the Bureau should look definitely as the research hub for men throughout the Caribbean, because for years, and not only I wasn't the only man that made the issue with IGDS, saying that being the head of the IGDS, who was tasked for getting statistics on gender studies in UE, didn't want to get statistics on men. Other persons who tried, the guy from NJAC said they encountered the same problem as well. And we told them that definitely the Men's Bureau has to be that type of hub that could gather and collate that type of information so that we guided when it comes to treating with the issues of men. And I strongly believe if they had some data or some research on the issues that impacting men, they would have put together a program that was more relatable to men yesterday. Like suicide, look at the number of suicides in the last 2 years. You're talking about 246 suicides, victims. Out of that 246, 202 were men. These things were mentioned but were not discussed with any real value. As I said, the main discussion and as I said, maybe it was just a litmus test, and they decided to get men in the workspace to talk about that particular topic. But most definitely, if the Men's Bureau discussion is to go forward, it must be a more pertinent discussion. It must be more targeted. It must be research driven. It must be, as you all said, it must compile the right men with the right message who want to promote the right ideology or image of what a man should look like in Trinidad and Tobago. Because there was also something said by some other men that had me questioning if they are talking about men or if they was talking about men people who identify as men, and that is something we kind of shut down one time.
Yeah.
You understand?
And that is what I was saying earlier on, and that is what I was trying to say. The Fathers Association is in a unique position where you all could drive the conversation, because I was trying to tell him the last thing we want is a men's bureau, because I understand what he was saying. He would like the men's bureau to be made up of only men. But I told him, I said, it can't be only men alone. I said, we at least have to have at least one woman or two women on the bureau. I said, but you don't want the bureau. What you don't want the bureau to be made up of is a bunch of women and a few men who identify as women, but the women say, but look at our men on the bureau. That is what you don't want.
But what you want to do as well, now women could support the bureau. I agree with that. They could play a supportive role to the bureau. Because of course it don't make sense we doing anything if we don't have the support of women. Just like it didn't make sense they would have not gone anywhere if they didn't have male support as well. But the reason why you gotta be careful from women playing a very instructive part on the bureau is that a woman's view of a man is different to what a man might really be. A woman will make a man what she wants a man to look like. You understand? And she may be genuinely concerned and really willing to assist on these things, but from her eyes, what she sees a man to be. So I believe women must support, but I believe men most definitely must comprise the bureau, and the bureau more so must be a flagship and advocate for male issues and having legislation passed, like things like paternity leave, all these things. So as I'm saying, women must be there to support. Women must be there as a supportive arm, because sometimes the opinion box, or Adrian, sometimes you don't want where it becomes a gender war in the center, if you understand what I mean. And it has happened at times. It has happened where, and another thing too is about the respecting the space too. Let me tell you why that is important. We've had many spaces that we have said and stated publicly, this is for a man space to vent. Only men must be here. And we have seen some women maliciously penetrated in our experience. And maliciously caused it to be dissolved too. So if one of the guys possibly said that, it is because we've had fears of spaces where we had said, hey, this is for men, and then women come in, some women come in, and then they had maliciously destroyed that space. And as men, we had to be able to allow women to have their spaces so they could have certain conversations. We as men had to have certain spaces where we could have our conversations. And then also, as I agree with you here, we create a space also where there's men and women together to converse. So, because we can't do it by ourselves. We can't say man one side, woman one side. But I believe at points there will be some things that men will have to do, some things women will have to do. And then at the end of it, we have to try to bring it together and see how it impacts the other gender. What women think about this. What men think about what women saying. These kind of things.
Saying to him that it has a lot of women who, the minute they hear Fathers Association or they hear Rondell fields, the first line that comes out of their mouth is, I don't like them, right? But I told them, I said, I have met a lot of women who are pro-Fathers Association. So I'm saying,
of course,
what I told
we have female members as well.
Right. So what I was saying is that if the board has to be made up, we need a woman in the board, so that when it comes to, because you know the first thing that comes up when you're dealing with if we deal with a panel that is all women, and men come to challenge anything that a woman is saying on the panel, we'll get stonewalled. Right? They will want to hear automatically. But I would say that by having a woman on the panel, at least one woman on the panel,
Right.
if an argument does come up and the women decide to be stonewalling or say, but listen, that narrative is not true. We now have a woman who is in the midst of what the fathers is doing. She is seeing it, the fathers, the men. She is seeing
Right.
in real time what is going on in society with men. She has access to the data, she has access to the information, she is seeing what is going on in the homes and all these different scenarios. So now she could come to women and say, let me tell you something. The narrative that these men are pushing, they are not making this up. This is
Right.
coming from a woman. I am here with them. I am seeing what is going on here. And you have to give space to what these men have to see. And what I was telling them is that if it is a case that is only men, and a man tries to come to tell a woman that, we're gonna get sued.
Nah, man. We see. Remember these things. It's years we dealing with this. It's years we've done this, and yes, you will bounce up some people who are anti the narrative, who will. It don't make a difference if you had one woman. If you bounce up somebody, so in our experience, they anti-narrative to even that one woman who want to say what we saying. They hate she even more than we. You know why they hate she more than we? Because she agreeing with us. Once they anti-narrative, they're anti-narrative. But I agree that we need support of women to help us push the agenda and support it. Whether if they, but I don't think they need to be on a board to do that. I don't even think the bureau going to be comprised in such a manner. I think it's just really going to be a department, and within the department they're going to select groups or males in certain groups, and they will have possibly certain discussions for certain agendas and these kind of things, right? But I would think if society has the perception that if men alone are in a group, it is a bad thing, that is why we should do it, because we need to show them it's not a bad thing. Because there are women alone in a group, and we men don't stonewall it. Right? So we have to let our women realize that you should not be afraid of our all male group. You see, we've told our women that we should be afraid of that. A group of people have told our women that they should be fearful of that. We had to show them something contrary. We've always been a group that's primarily led by men. And we have real women support us. And let me tell you why we have women support us. We have women that support us, Adrian, that didn't like us 10 years ago. But you know what happened? We supported their son's father, so they hated us. But their son grew up and ended up in the same situation like their father. So she can't get to see her grandchild. And numbers of grandmothers come back to us now. Them is the biggest supporter, the biggest flagship, the biggest everything. Because now, if I tell you the amount of times I've heard women say, Mr. Fields, I now understand what you're talking about. I didn't like it, you know. But now my son going through the same thing. I can't even see my grandchild. Because ultimately it's going to trickle back down to them, particularly if there's a mother of a son. You understand?
Rondell, I want to get your views before we run out of time.
Yeah. Get my views fast and run back in this thing too.
Just had 7 minutes to go. What are your thoughts on what this men's bureau should entail?
Well, I say the men's bureau for me, if it's my personal perception, as I said before, it must be that catalyst or that research hub. Because we cannot make planning for anything unless we have the data. We cannot debunk any myths unless we have the data. We cannot understand the true state of our I think people not understanding the real severity of that's why I just talk about murder, you know. When a woman dies, there is a sense in the country, a whole sensationalization of the country, a belief that men are murderers at will of women. But if you are telling me it is 19 men out of 500,000 who are capable to kill, then you do not have the data to say that men are by nature murderous and dangerous and wicked and slaughtering women everywhere. We cannot, no matter how. But without the data, people could go around and inflame scenarios when they take place. And that is what our society has suffered from for over the last decade. That is why 3 men that get killed in one day and nobody cares. That is why the murder rate of 90 point... People don't even know the murder rate of men is 90.7%. If you go in the street with a camera and ask somebody who's the most murdered in Trinidad, they may say women. Women make up 9.3% of the murder rate in Trinidad. Men make up 90.7%. But because the stats isn't out there, and only now we putting these stats out there on suicide and these things, plenty of people don't know the suicide stats, the suicide rates. And men are not driven in a way where they go and sensitize like that. So it had to be research. I'm going to run out of time. It had to be the research hub so that we have statistic to lobby for things that we need to see changing. And 2, they have to be, I believe, one of the lead advocates and the change agents for a number of the things that have... We already highlighted the issues, fellas. We have highlighted many issues over the years. Joint select committees. We have a long list of issues. Looking for the issues is not hard anymore. And we have statistics for some of them as well. Homelessness, suicide, murder, these things. We have highlighted the issues that impact men seriously. So it's just to form this body, gather the statistic, and use that as the driving engine for change, to lobby parliament. So the Ministry of Gender must be writing the Attorney General, the Minister. And if any woman we want on that group is the Minister, if we must have a woman. If she's a woman, we have no problem. Because we want she to be the driving factor as well. She must talk to her cabinet colleague to say, here what's going on. This. I am the Minister of Gender. We accustomed giving you issues and lobbying you to have laws made for domestic violence. These are the issues and the laws we need to see made in the benefit of men. So that is what I am looking for. I am looking at the Bureau must use its ministerial arm, not just a coalition of NGOs, but a coalition of NGOs backed by the power of the minister, with the minister's power, whether the minister is a woman or a man. And then those suggestions tabled to the right parliamentarians that need to go to the AG's office to bring about the changes. That is what a men's desk, that is one part when it comes to change. Then the ministry will have another part of the arm that has to deal with the social change. If it comes to going into communities, doing the type of courses they might need, empowering young boys, these kind of things, making sure you have balance when you're giving educational programs to girls, that boys doing it, getting it too. These kind of, so you're going to have an operational arm where you're in the community, dealing with these social issues, and then you're going to have a legislative arm or a body inside of there that looking at legislation that needs to be changed, needs to be introduced, needs to be put in place so that they will actually benefit males in our society.
Thanks for that feedback, Rondell.
Right, so guys, I had to run. I had to go and talk to the guys in the Milat sit-in. It was good for the few minutes. Opinion box, welcome. Thanks for coming in with the guys today. And guys, have a good week. Right?
All right, brother. Take care. Have a good one. Lenore says here, AJ. Lenore says there are many great fathers around. My mom died when I was very young, and my father raised me and his other children without our mother. Lenore, thanks for sharing that feedback. Lenore is joining us all the way from Alaska, right? And Lenore is an avid listener. So Lenore, as always, we welcome your contributions. AJ, we have 2 minutes to go. Wendell, 2 minutes. Any closing remarks?
All I would say to all the young men at Toyota to be go, stick to my motto, make a better version of yourself every day. And maybe it's time that men become a little more selfish and put ourselves first.
Wendell?
I encourage men to know who they are, identify yourself. You were born male, The transition into men, identify yourself as men. Do not be discouraged by the voices out there criticizing and condemning and villainizing. You were born with purpose. Be men of purpose.
Thank you, Wendell. To all the men there who are out there, we are still getting messages, even through the inbox, saying that they want to reach out to us, they want to connect with us, they have issues with their child mother and wife and so on, and they need to go before the courts. They want advice. Remember, as I said earlier, please join the Telegram support group. I'll put the link up on the page at the end of the program. Right? Join the Telegram support group. We can't talk to all men one-on-one, right? It's not enough of us. So join the Telegram support group, attend the Zoom meetings that we have, and where you can receive information, you could receive support and encouragement from men who have been where you are today, right? And went through the process and got shoulders to lean on and got encouraging words and got advice, right? Please join the support group so that we can guide you through. All right, Trinidad and Tobago, it's been a pleasure having you all on this platform today. Power 102, as always. We thank you, David, and we thank the executive of Power 102 who made the decision to give men a space and airtime in this country. AJ, from Opinion Box, thank you very much for being here with us this evening, brother.
It was great. It was a great opportunity. Thank you all so much.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We look forward to next Friday's edition of Hard Talk with the Fathers Association.